Emotional intelligence. Why do feelings matter? Ew, feelings? Aren't feelings messy? Don't feelings take up time? Aren't feelings embarrassing and vulnerable? Well, sure. Feelings are also powerful. Feelings are also undeniable. Feelings also make people do things. Feelings also make memories. Feelings matter. Let's talk about why. Resonance doesn't happen by accident. Emotional intelligence is the paintbrush or the design tool that we pull out of the pocket to say, okay, I've got a thing here, a little bit like our cultural relevance exercise last week, or mapping out the territories. Let's take the product and the people. Again, you've got a gap between these two things. How do you close that gap? Emotions are what close that gap. Emotions create intimacy. That thing feels like me. I want that thing. I like the way that thing feels. Or not necessarily I like it. It could also be I'm worried about the way that thing feels. Either way, it causes action. Emotion is the gateway to action. And we've got so much data now. We've got AI pumping out the data. We've got aggregation in every kind of way. But data only means so much until you apply insight and narrative and storytelling to it. And numbers don't mean anything until you know what those numbers feel like or mean to the human beings. Emotion becomes the connector between the numbers and the people. An economy can't exist without people. A stock market can't exist without people. A market can't exist without emotions. It's time that we got a little bit more comfortable and literate with emotions, because it tells us so much about what we want to do with our businesses. When we produce products and experiences that resonate, they tend to have a much better chance of being three things: remembered, shared, naturally scaling. Remember the cultural flywheel last week? Sticky, exciting, relevant. Oh, I've shared it with someone accidentally and naturally. And loved. A deep feeling of desire, loyalty, magnetism. And then also neuroscience tells us, I used to be an ambassador for a neuroscience organization back when I was an artist, that I spoke about in the first week. And I think if you weren't here, I spoke about how I spent 10 years, I developed a therapy. And one of the things that I did with that therapy, a major project, was sitting with people at the end of their lives. And so I got to know what matters to people very deeply. And I sat with their emotions and I sat with their memories, and we captured their life stories for their families, and to help them come to the end of their lives in a peaceful and profound and honoring and intentional way. And neuroscience tells us the more memory, you probably know this, but to let you know, the more senses we engage when we have an experience, the more deeply the memory can be embedded in the mind, because several systems are being engaged and the blueprint is being stamped at a time. Engaging our physiology, engaging our somatic system, engaging our other memories that attach to that new memory, engaging our emotions, engaging fear, desire, love, surprise, tends to engage emotions that are much deeper. And also, of course, on the physiological level, senses. So when you watch a movie and you've got visual, you've got sound, you might have the taste of the popcorn, you might have the crunch of the choc top, you might go to a fairground and you've got touch, taste, sense, smell. Those memories become cinematic in your mind, because you literally have neurochemistry, neurobiology lacing together to create, that's a memory I'm going to hold for a long time to come. And of course, you can imagine if we will interface that with a market or an economy where we're selling things, we want to engage as many emotions all at once, to engage with that person on a deeper level than any other way. So let's reframe emotional intelligence for a moment. It's not soft. It's structural. Emotional intelligence, or human emotion, human behavior, which is emotion, think of it like a fabric that coats the economy. And the economy, just like it's the zeitgeist and its humanity and its emotions as a fabric all at once that coats the economy. And the economy moves in line with how the spirit of the time is moving forward, how the feelings ebbing and pulsing at any point in time. that naturally shows up in the way that money and value move through a system. If people are scared, they're going to behave a certain way. If people are joyous, they're going to behave a certain way. If people are celebratory, if people want to feel excess, if people want to feel extreme, the market is going to show that. And the more we can build our literacy and understanding emotion, the better as business leaders and government and culture leaders, we can start to see what's coming forward through for us, because we're getting a sense of the zeitgeist, of the feeling of the time, which moves us in the direction of, prediction and being on the very cutting edge. I want you to think of any brands that hold any emotional weight for you. The reason that they might hold emotional weight for you is because they feel like they know you. It's not necessarily said in words, it's a felt sense. That's emotional design. It's not by accident. It's very intentional, clear choices being made by Coca-Cola with that particular red and that particular typography of the script logo mark. And then even they've got the little Coca-Cola little cans now where they're cropping off the edges of the logo. That's a very modern maximalist design aesthetic, which is very much in line with the zeitgeist. Yeah, it shows up in the way they redesign Coca-Cola cans. I love those little Coca-Cola cans literally for the aesthetic. I'm sure you would too. Think of McDonald's and think of, this can swing in good and bad ways. We can mask anyone who is kind of doing bad things in the world understands this and uses it in their work. The power of the Make America Great Again hat is undeniable. That is emotional design. Nothing is by accident. And like I, often say, Coolnomics is just as relevant for for businesses as it is for governments. If we want people to vote for us, we need to be relevant. Let's look at Zoran Mamdani right now. He's about to have that election in the next couple of days. Let's see if he wins. He's run a really good race. It's been emotional, relevant. He's gotten it out amongst the streets with all the different types of people who are going to be gaining traction. Let's see where that lands. But yes, emotion is so relevant to businesses right through to governments. Now let's think of some examples of brands and businesses that have loyalty ongoing, because we don't want just emotion in this one moment. We want emotion in this moment, that moment, this moment. And we want to continue the cultural, just like a cultural flywheel, we have an emotional flywheel. One of the businesses I'm taking to market at the moment, we're thinking a lot about how we want people to feel, and the feeling with that particular brand, scrolling on Instagram, with, think of the headlines that people are scrolling and the emotional experience people are having on Instagram specifically as one of the platforms at the moment. This particular brand has a lot of nature imagery, it's surfing, it's artistry, it's First Nations storytelling, it's deep, ancestral, sacred, so far away from the headlines that people would be seeing in every other post. And I believe our content, because the content is cranking, it's getting hundreds of thousands of views, before we've even released the product. I believe part of that is the way that we're making people feel. And it's a moment for people to breathe, to stop, to engage in a story, to see something aesthetically beautiful with deep artistry and consideration to it. Now let's think of some examples of the moments where cultural movements and emotions connect up. And then also the fact that people don't behave in rational ways. Markets aren't rational, markets are emotional. So let's think of some examples, right? So we've had Melbourne Cup today, and there's a whole bunch of different points of view on the ethics of Melbourne Cup. But if we really think about Melbourne Cup or gambling, is that rational? Is it rational to ride a horse and have a bleeding mouth at the end of that race? Is that okay? Is that rational? That seems emotional because it's the dressing up, it's the gambling, it's the spectacle, it's the tradition. That is emotional. Going on a roller coaster, that is dangerous and scary. That's emotionally driven, and it also creates memories. Now, let's think of a really sticky one. Smoking. Let's think about smoking. Okay, people aren't going to stop smoking until... Oh wow, I just got balloons behind me. I don't know how that happened. Smoking. People aren't going to stop smoking until it's not cool. It's still cool. They've even try to make it grotesque on the packaging. Think of that. Think of those emotional drivers. You've got the ridiculous grey and grotesque eyeballs and lungs and brain imagery on the packaging, yet people disregard that because the emotional driver is too strong. The addiction, the neurochemistry, the identity of it, the connection to community, the feeling of what it, you know, who you are and what it reminds you of when you smoke. Until we can overcome those behavioral drivers, people are not going to stop. And I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of examples. That's why people do things that aren't necessarily good for them. They keep doing them because it's still cool. It's still relevant and resonant and credible, authentic. We've got history behind us that says smoking and drinking and doing naughty things is fun, desirable, sexy, powerful. People won't just stop doing those things until the identity and the emotion around that changes. I'm sure you'd have some examples as well. Now, let's look at some hierarchies of emotions. Let's get into a little bit of more science, a bit more structure for a moment. We can have a positive affect or we can have a negative affect. And in the psychology and neuroscience worlds, we've got some hierarchies that occur. We've got four main pillars that scientists, behavioral scientists tend to group emotions into. We've got contentment, we've got happiness, we've got love, and we've got pride. Powerful, potent verticals of emotion. And as you can see, they sort of span the container. From calm to visceral to undeniable and grounded. And then negative affect, we've got 4 key pillars as well. Anger, fear, sadness, shame. So we saw shame, embarrassment, humiliation show up in the "is it embarrassing to have a boyfriend now" headline. I'm sure there are a million boyfriends who would feel certain levels of, triggers of, versions of humiliation, confusion, embarrassment, shame to be at the center of a headline like that. That was part of the virality of it. How could we work with the boyfriend persona archetype role so that the feeling was of a girlfriend, again, in the zeitgeist, I don't mean on a visual level, but people felt and boyfriends felt pride, joy, relief, enthusiasm, optimism, peace in their identity in that particular archetype or role. And as we know, we can also leverage negative emotions if we want people to do things. We can scare them, we can shock them, we can confuse them. Think of people selling menus on the street to